for, a drunk that I pulled over one night that decided he was going to take off running from me in the woods, and Spike tracked him, and I was on the track with him. Which, by the way, anytime we tracked a suspect, I was deathly afraid. Like, and I'm not exaggerating. Like, I was afraid at nighttime to be on a track with this dog if I was with the canine handler, because when they're gone and they're figurating and they're whatever. Like, a lot of times they'll have a tendency to circle back around. And I was, every time that he would turn his shoulder and start, I'm like, oh fuck, man, he doesn't know that I'm a cop. Like, this, he's gonna tear me up, because he was out of control and you couldn't trust him. But I remember we found the guy, and he ended up bites the guy, which there was felony charges on the guy. He wouldn't come out. Blah blah blah. Like, it was right to send the dog in. It was right to do all that. He had the proper announcements. He had all the warnings. Like, hey, dude, you're gonna get bit. Like, come on out.
Yep.
And when Spike goes in and drags this guy out by his arm, and when he came out, man, his tricep was hanging from his arm. I mean, like, his whole muscle. Like, I had never
Yeah.
seen anything like that.
When those dogs tear into somebody, they can do a lot of damage. I mean, and like you say, these are big canines on these animals. Some of them even have some dental work done to have metal teeth, cap, things like that. I mean, they can tear in, rip muscles. And when you see significant damage like that, ask, did we just apprehend somebody that was just having a bad night, that maybe had too much to drink and made a bad decision? Or is this a really bad guy that we're tuning up? And you don't always know that as a police officer out there.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole goal is, yes, you have to take these people into custody, but you can't do more harm than good at the same time.
Well, that's the thing, right? You can't just allow your dog to sit there and maul on somebody. And when you give the command for your dog to release and get off, it should listen, right? And there just recently there was a video here in Dayton, and I have so many friends that are still police officers, and I love them to death. It was part of my DNA. But here recently, I don't know if you saw that video with Dayton with the canine that wouldn't listen to his handler and actually bit him. Did you see that video?
It's not an isolated incident. These dogs don't always respond to command. They don't always, like you said, bite the person that they're supposed to bite. They are still an animal, somewhat unpredictable. Yes, they can respond to commands, but they don't always instantly respond to commands. And they get caught up in the moment as much as anybody else does. And where they're latched and loaded on somebody, getting them off isn't always easy. I mean, they even have to use sticks to break the jaws, things like that, to get them off people. It's not always pretty what these dogs do.
All right. So last thing on dogs, because you're an attorney, you're sitting here with us. You do criminal defense. First of all, I think canines are a great tool, and I think they should be part of the police department's tool belt as long as they're properly trained and all that good stuff. But I was huge on dope. Like, I love drug interdiction. That was just a big part of what I want to do. If I could get some drugs and guns off the street, like, I felt like I had a good shift. So I use the canine a lot, right? Because people like you tell everybody not to let us search their cars. And, they have their constitutional rights. And unfortunately, we have to listen to that, even though we know there's drugs in the car. But when you have a canine, it was easy, right? As long as you're within a reasonable time frame, which I think the courts have held, within like 20 minutes of our normal duty to issue a citation and go through all that. If you could get the canine there to do an open air sniff, you were covered under the law. So when you see a case where your client gets jammed up with drugs, and the only probable cause that is in that affidavit is an open air sniff, are you like, oh man, they got my client? Dogs know drugs, man. Has to be a sure shot case.
These dogs aren't always accurate. The command that, or what happens, which most people don't understand, is that when a canine scents drugs, they're trained to sit. And, you can give a sit command. The handler can prompt the dog to sit. That dog doesn't always hit on drugs. I've seen plenty of searches where these dogs supposedly hit. The officers think that they got somebody, and the dog randomly sits, and yet no drugs are found. Other times the drugs are accurate. Do I think a dog can be trained to sniff out drugs? You bet I do. And I think that they're a great tool in the arsenal for police officers to use appropriately. However, is there misuse and abuse of that tool? You bet.
I never called Spike, canine we've been talking about, to a scene to do an open air sniff and did not get a positive hit on a vehicle.
Amazing. The dog that loved to bite people and found drugs everywhere he went.
He was
super dog. On. Yeah.
I never didn't get a positive hit. I never didn't get it. But what I will say is I didn't always find dope. So, it's interesting how that works out. But all right, so we beat the canines up enough, and of course you're Montgomery County's best friend, I'm sure. But thinking back over your career, is there a case, not because you lost, or is there a case that keeps you up at night, or a case that's always, kind of comes back around your mind when you're thinking about things because it, opened your eyes to how unjust our justice system can be at times, or how broken our system can be?
There's we'll stick with the theme of police cases. One that I can think about in particular, there's certain immunities that are granted to police departments in statute. There was a woman in a crosswalk in a wheelchair, motorized wheelchair, crossing the street. An officer was headed down the street. He was looking left. There was a call on the radio of a vehicle accident, no injuries, and he would have been third or fourth vehicle on the scene. And he was looking left when he should have been looking ahead and just hit this poor old lady head on. Did a lot of damage, really hurt her. She was fortunate to be able to live through the injuries. But because the law said that this officer was on a call for service, that immunity applied and that there was no liability for it. There was no insurance coverage. And this poor lady just suffered immensely. And that's one of those instances where you just see a great injustice with a harm that was caused through clear negligence from the officer driving the vehicle, yet there was no liability associated with it. Why? Because somebody in our state legislature decided to act a law that would prevent you from suing a police officer under a circumstance when they were on a call for service.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy that's a case to bring up because I had a similar case myself, where I was on duty, and now I don't think I did anything wrong, okay, and I think that I should have been immune from being sued. But then I look back, as I became older, and I looked at these, and I'm like, man, but the family didn't get anything, and it was real simple. Again, it was down Springboro. I run a plate, and if people know anything about the mobile CAD systems and everything that's in there, they can hit on partial VINs, they can hit on partial identifiers for people. And when you're a police officer and you're driving down the road, especially if you're in like rush hour traffic, you get a hit, you might not be able to like look and match up a VIN really quick, right? Like your computer starts beeping, starts sirening, stolen vehicle, wanted person, whatever it was. And I remember I ran a plate past me, and it popped up stolen vehicle, right? Like computer's going crazy. I'm in rush hour. I flip around, I get around a car to get through the lights on, and I catch up to this vehicle. And I won't say the road, but you probably know where it's at. You have to go down a big dip, and then you come right back up another dip as you're leaving Springboro into another area. And lights and sirens, see the car up. Doesn't seem like it's stopping for me. And I go around one car. It's a 2-lane road. And as I get around this car with a 2-lane road, I could see in my mirror all the cars were stopped behind me because they had all pulled over, went to the right, did what they were supposed to do.
Yep.
But as soon as I get back in my lane, I see a work van, has ladder racks and everything on it, passing me full speed. I can tell it doesn't see the cars that are stopped up in front of it. Guy's on a cell phone. And in my rearview mirror, I watched this van lock up his brakes, go to the left, hit a car head on that was stopped. But in his van, it was a plumber, and he had, copper and plumbing things, went through the windshield, end up hitting one of the passengers in the car. And there's a lot of really bad damage that happened to that person, end up being a firefighter's family member. So I'm on scene now there. And of course, everybody blamed me for the incident, which I think back now and I'm like, man, if I wouldn't have ran the plate, if I wouldn't have done something like whatever, but it happened because a guy was distracted on his phone, not seeing lights and sirens. But there was no way that they could have sued me at that time because I was immune, because I was running emergency, operating lights and sirens.
Sure. But that can lead into let's even have a talk about what I see as a personal injury attorney, insurance coverage. And most people don't realize this, but the reason why I think most people should buy insurance is for underinsured motorist coverage. And I'm not here selling insurance or anything,
Sure.
but most people don't even realize what that is. And it's as if the person who hit you had your insurance. So you can go and purchase a policy, not just for liability purposes, but so that you can protect your own vehicle too, to where in that situation that you were in, had that person purchased uh, the underinsured motorist coverage, that is their source of recovery, even if that van that had the plumbing supplies and things like that speared into the other vehicle, even if they had no coverage. So, we also have to protect ourselves as well, and we have the ability to do that.
Yeah, we say that to my son all the time, kind of similar to that. He's only 13, but man, he's into dirt bikes and crazy stuff. And boys are nuts, man. He's already talking like, I want to, as soon as I get my license, I want a motorcycle. And of course, his mom is an ICU nurse for many, many years. She's like, you're not getting a motorcycle. And she's like, well, you can trust me. Like I'm a good rider, blah, blah. And we always tell them the same thing. We're not worried about you. We're worried about everybody else on the road, right? And that's a problem with a lot of things. And same thing with